Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gameroom Discourse podcast. My name is Mike,
I'm James.
And I'm Joey.
and this week's episode is going to be horror games due to the festive Halloween that just happened. We decided it'd be good to do just an episode on the spooky scares of the game genre. Before we get into it, I would like to just do a quick top 5 of my favorite horror games.
Go for it.
As the local horror lover in this group. For me, it would be in order: Silent Hill PT, SCP Containment Breach, Outlast, then Outlast 2, and then Amnesia: The Dark Descent. With Amnesia: Machine for Pigs, Penumbra: Black Plague, and Alien Isolation as honorable mentions.
I mean, those are pretty good ones. I personally like Containment Breach and Alien Isolation.
Yeah, they're good.
I haven't played a Silent Hill game, but I'm pretty sure they're good. Just wanted to
Yeah, I
preface
haven't
that.
played many. Shattered Memories is really good.
I mean, I do like horror games mostly because, like, the elements to it.
Right.
Like, it's different from, like, a horror movie, you know, for horror games. Like, instead of, like, you being surprised and, like, oh, that would be a scary situation to be in, you're actually kind of in a situation where you're playing the game. I think that, like, mostly like the elements of it, of like you're in a dark and scary place and you're up against an unknown, very powerful entity, and any method of fighting back is always risky.
Yes, it is.
You're never. I was gonna say you're never really meant to fight back against the things in horror games. Your first method should normally be to run away. Normally, I'm saying normally. In traditional, I'd say, like, in the sense of horror, to like make horror stand out.
A lot of horror nowadays is zombie shooters, like Resident Evil and things like that, where your object is to actually kill the thing that you're running from. But I like the horror games like Outlast and Amnesia and Penumbra and things like that, where you don't have a fight option. You are being hunted by something that will kill you, and there is no safety. I like that.
Normally, escape is the object, I would say, of a traditional horror game, I should say.
Yes, I guess.
Like for Alien Isolation, there's no way you're fighting that thing for the
No.
majority of the game. The thing is not only scary and on your ship, it's also intelligent.
I think the thing that I love about horror the most has to be specifically the games, because it's very hard to make a successful horror movie nowadays because a lot of it's already been done. But you only have 2 hours to make a movie successful, max, usually nowadays. Now, with a game, you have hours and hours that you can build up tension and atmosphere and dialogue and just make it uncomfortable.
Yeah, you can literally build up trauma for the player as they're playing the game.
And when done right, it really does, leave a lasting impact. I think horror games leave the most impact on people a lot of times because, when I first played Outlast, there's a couple scenes in there that are just genuinely shocking and terrifying. And you have to sometimes really stop and think of like, oh my God, this is just a game. Remind yourself this is just a game. Like it can be terrifying playing some of those games.
Yeah, but to be fair, like, horror games normally have, like, I'd say are probably the most popular on the internet, I'd say. Like, you'd see a lot of,
well, yeah, because people like to, reactionary content is always very popular.
It's always good, and maybe, like, people want to see how other people reacted to it, too, because
exactly.
like, I don't know. For some reason, it's probably more interesting to see someone scream, I guess.
Yeah.
3 scary games is very entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. I mean, anytime anything else is released, like how Five Nights at Freddy's was released, or I'd say now for like what's that new series called? It kind of Poppy's Playtime. That
Oh,
one.
I haven't actually done much with that game. I don't know much about it. Not my
Oh,
style. I'm not a big FNAF type person.
I mean, I'd say it's different than the style of like FNAF of like. I mean, I'd say the jump scares at the end are scary, but like it does good job of like building the suspense and actually making things that are supposed to be toys intimidating as like
Yeah, that makes sense.
they're moving slow to you, confidently to you, or you know, then they all of a sudden pick up speed is when it also gets
Right.
scary.
I don't know. I like horror games that like this. I don't think there is a genre of games where sound plays a more important role than like gameplay. I think that
Oh
if
yeah,
you don't, if like sound is the most important thing in horror games, like the way they like utilize sound, like for the atmosphere, for the jump scares, for tension. Like if you don't have a good quality, then it's going to fail.
oh yeah. Sound cues are also like the best part for horror games of like it's really good to build the ambiance. Like say if you're in a forest, like you start moving around and you hear like your own footsteps, but then all of a sudden when you stop, you still start hearing those footsteps when you're in the dark woods. That starts getting you scared, or
Yep.
like when things are mostly silent and then you just hear something like kind of scutter in the back somewhere or just out of sight.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like horror games would probably do good with like 3D like audio because that
Maybe.
would because it
I
would be
I
like
mean
you
Oculus.
specifically if you're like Oculus
If you,
with 3D audio for horror game
uh,
would be scary.
how would you do 3D audio? Like, what do you mean? Like surround sound?
Uh some people do like this thing called binaural like for like ASMR and whatnot, how that was out before.
Oh, okay.
Like
I know
it
what you mean.
has like two separate microphones that take it and like sound is like it's apart like how your ears would be apart. So it actually like
Right.
receives information like an ear would because this microphone would pick it up and then this one would pick it up slightly later. So it would feel like, it's an actual person that has that audio. I imagine that probably would be hard though if it was like an interactive experience.
Well, I think it's also hard because that takes a lot of money, and most horror games nowadays are not first party games.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
Like the majority of the horror genre is run by indie developers. And
Because
you know,
I mean,
I think indie horror games are some of the best horror games, frankly, just because of what they turn into.
oh yeah, you
You know,
get
it
freelance
yeah,
stuff, and I mean like you can make your own kind of horrors for that. I mean when you do AAA, it's kind of like, well, we can't create our own monsters because then that's not something we can bank on. So
right,
like stuff like Dead by Daylight has to be like, okay, we're gonna use well known stuff. And it's normally
right.
like the appeal of those that we could draw
Dead
people
by
in.
Daylight is not scary
I
at
mean,
all.
if you're up against like a strong killer, I would say yeah. Or like when you're starting out.
It's not frightening. It's just it's just running away. It doesn't frighten, at least not for me. It just doesn't frighten me.
Eh.
It just feels like hide and seek. And I'm like,
Oh,
all right, cool.
you have not played with Dane when he uses Michael Myers.
I
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who I play with. Like that style of game doesn't bother me. It might get me on a jump scare once or twice, but like not it wouldn't scare me.
Eh. I
That's
feel
like
like
FNAF doesn't scare me.
no, with Dane it was just like, how there's normally tense music in Dead by Daylight. He'd play Michael Myers and there'd be no sound whatsoever. So he'd literally be behind you staring at you, and until you turn the camera, you wouldn't notice that he's like right there. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
and it builds up that paranoia throughout the game that, oh fuck, Dane could be literally anywhere right now, and I have no idea. I think that's also a good thing of like horror games. I think what got me there was because it stripped away agency I used to have, where I normally had like audio cues that the killer is near that they just freaking took away from us immediately.
I love
couldn't do anything.
I love the feeling of helplessness in horror games. The feeling of like I don't have anywhere that I'm safe. I could be killed at any moment.
Yeah,
and I don't know, and there's nothing I can do about it. I just have to run, and that terrifies me. Like, being hopeless and knowing there's something that you can't fight, and the logic behind a lot of slashers is that it's usually like a regular like a person, not like some deity or something like that or supernatural. Like it's usually a person of some sort going around and doing it. Whether they're super strong or super resilient or whatever, they're still a person. And like that doesn't scare me because I you can fight a person, and that doesn't, whether you'll win or not is irrelevant to my logic. Is when it's supernatural, there's nothing you could do. It's just helplessness.
To be fair in that vein, I would say Jason Voorhees was very supernatural in that sense
But
of like.
no, he was a human. I mean, he's still a human.
He got his head cut off multiple times and didn't die. He got shot up and beat up by the town. I'd say like that's really scary to go up against. Like you can't fight that. Like at that point, you got to question what in your power can you do to stop them.
Cut his legs off, and then he can't get you.
He has regenerated from that. I would have stand out like to the point that.
But you could get away. Like you cut his legs off, it'll take him time, and you just get away. Like my point is, when it comes to a human or a human-esque person or a human-styled enemy, villain, horror figure, whatever, there are physical things you can do because they are body-bound. Whereas if it's a supernatural entity, there is nothing you could do, hypothetically or not. You can't win. You can't win. Unless you banish the demon.
Some of them are scary. Like Ghostface is just like
they don't scare me though.
I'd say like
they might
he's
scare
more
you, but they just don't scare me.
intelligent. I'm saying like it's more of like
clever.
something of like being intelligent or like powerful is like still frightening. Of like he's already basically got you in his clutches. Especially like where some of the killers are just like fast for no reason, where their walk speed is much faster than your run speed and don't tire.
I understand what you're saying. I get it, but
or like unnatural teleportation sometimes.
In the general grand scheme of things, I get it, and like you're not wrong. But for me personally, that stuff doesn't scare me. If it's a human, it won't, or was a human or whatever. If it was human or is human, it doesn't scare me. It just because it doesn't. If I was in that position in real life, maybe I probably would. I think most people would. But as far as a game goes, I immediately become less scared once I know that it has like limitations as a human. Like no matter how many buffs you give a human, it's still human. So there's always something you could do to stop it, or at least delay it and then get away. When there's nothing you can do to control it, like in a supernatural thing, when there's nothing you can do to make it stop, it can appear out of anywhere, it can show up anywhere, it can, you can't hit it, you can't hurt it, you can't fight it. You have to essentially survive long enough to possibly banish it. And even then, it's usually an idea. So you can't really get rid of it. You can only delay it. But like you can't physically fight it. There's only running and hiding.
I mean,
and that scares me.
I do understand that, but still, there's all the slashers just have not like been caught or been stopped. I know that you say that they do have limits, but we have yet to see them like in a natural sense. Is what I'm saying.
I mean, Ghostface. Ghostface died.
Yeah.
The initial killer died. I mean, Freddy Krueger is currently dead. Pennywise died, but Pennywise is also supernatural. But he's kind of both.
It's weird for a lot of them.
Michael Myers apparently dies in this new movie. I don't know. I'm not going to see it because it's boring.
Then what is it called? I know which one
I
you're
don't
talking
know.
about.
I don't know the Halloween Ends. I don't know the
Oh,
legacy of Jason, but I know that those movies are just so unscary nowadays because of how much they've been done. But like, a lot of the slashers, they have genuinely died. Whether
well, I
they
mean,
come back as a different whether they come back as a different person or not is different. Like they die. So
I'd say that would be our saturation outside of the game. So I'd say like I'm just like you're
I
used to
guess.
these guys now, but like in a game, I would say it would be like, oh fuck, especially to introduce a new entity that you have no idea what the fuck it is. It's gonna be like, uh, how do I deal with this random alien on my spaceship now that can go into to just search around for me? This thing is intelligent? Oh shit. Wait, it has some other new ability that I didn't know about? Fuck.
Fair enough.
I mean, like, at least for a game, like, you can always, literally for, like, the sense of difficulty, it gets harder as the game goes on, I should say. Well, actually, well, while we're on this, I was gonna go to SCP, like, Containment Breach. Um, the traditional, you mean the online one and not the, like, original,
I mean I prefer the original one, like the literal
the
one that
single
you go on.
player?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one,
It,
like, in
that was
that one,
I
that
don't
one
know
was
anything
good
about the
for
multiplayer one.
well, that one is, like, operated by players, and you have multiple people going throughout the multiple levels of the SCP facility. And, well, that could be scary, but, it's with people, and I think that, again, that makes it less scary, because you can kinda understand people and what they're gonna do. But, like, even when it's, like, a computer program, you have no idea what the frick it's gonna do. Computers in itself is kinda scary of, like, how will this thing act if I move this way, because I don't know what it will do. Um,
Right.
and, again, of course, that literally in that video game, because I remember playing it, it's hard to navigate because you're by yourself against you don't know which SCPs are gonna go up against, or when you're gonna face them, and some are reoccurring, and sometimes you just won't have the things to combat them or the methods to run away properly. So you just gotta deal with whatever you find and scrape up. Basically, you're
Right.
guerrilla warfare and your own freaking survival. You're scraping by of just like, oh fuck, like at every opportunity. Like, it's a good horror game if the person that's playing the game wants to keep moving at all times.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with SCP Containment Breach, you also don't know which SCPs are safe.
Oh yeah.
Like some of them are safe, but they also have like caveats. Like it's so unsettling in that game. And
The
then
the thing
like
with the thing with SCP in general though is just like safe is a qualification of like, oh, if we put it in a box, we would all be fine. But that doesn't mean like if you go in that box, you will be
yeah,
fine.
exactly. There's so much to think about with the SCPs, and it was like constantly being updated because there's so many. It's so
Yeah.
good.
It is good. I am a big fan of SCP. And in itself, the whole thing is hard because it's just like, adding new stuff to this giant, basically, forum wiki page of,
Yeah, pretty
weird
much.
stuff. And it's just like, oh, okay. That's frightening. Because basically you get everyone's horror ideas in one area, basically. I mean, I also do like the multiplayer version because that updates frequently and they add new SCPs in there every now and then. But yeah, very cool. Uh,
Hmm. I would like to talk about Amnesia, the one that I think pioneered a lot of horror games. Amnesia is my favorite, mainly because most of the game you don't see a monster. Most of the game, it is just pure tension and sounds and just a brilliant atmosphere that just fucking horrifies you. I I
yeah,
I I get scared in the first 10 minutes just because of how good the sound quality is. and it's like the monster hardly ever appears. I'm not going to spoil it, but like there's also a phenomenal story as well, like of that game. And
I know, I think enough of it to like why it's a horror game of just.
I mean, it's one of the best horror games.
Of like, oh, you have no idea what's going on. You're literally waking up here
Yeah,
out
you're
of
just
nowhere, and
waking
you
up
don't
out
know.
of nightmares, and you don't have any memory of anything, and that's also scary. That's a fear of mine, and just in general, just not being
Well,
able to
just
remember things.
yeah, that's the thing of like, I don't know what I can do to help myself, or even I don't know how I got here.
Yeah,
Am I
like I
even in
don't
a
know where I
safe
am, how I
place?
got here. Yeah,
Am I even
and
in the
then
same
hearing
country I
sounds,
remember last? Yeah,
and then hearing sounds, and like not knowing if you're going crazy because you also just woke up and you're lucid, so you don't know if it's real or not. And then sometimes
you're
it
the
is
only
real,
one
sometimes it's not
there.
real, sometimes it's just horrifying. And then by the time the monster does come out, you're already being scared by things like steam or splashing sounds or anything that you literally almost shit yourself when you finally see the monster. Like
But I mean, like, if you see it the
it
first
just
time,
yeah,
though, now you know
it
it's out
doesn't end.
there. Now
Yeah.
you know it's out there,
Well,
and
the
that's
first
in
time
your
you
head.
see it, you don't really know because like at the same time, it's just um, you also still don't know if it was what you just saw was real because you um
You're not exactly
you're
sure if you're
not
in the right
thinking
mind or not.
straight. Yeah, exactly. And it's brilliantly crafted. And the sequel, which came out way too late, was no like joke. It was really good. I mean, so and then Justine and Requiem. Justine's a custom story, which I love. Another thing about Amnesia is the custom stories being stories is just great. But like something about Amnesia always tops the others for me. Like when it comes to Outlast, which I think is the scariest horror game of all time, Outlast and Outlast 2. It doesn't reach Amnesia in just a couple things, but those couple things are so important, like sound quality and atmosphere. They're brilliant in both of those, but Amnesia just is so good, and it takes a great atmosphere to just genuinely terrify someone without even showing them anything. And Outlast built a lot of its scares on. It does have great tension, but it relies on the monsters and the psychological terror of helplessness, which is good. That's why they're my second and third favorite horror games. But um, Outlast 2 being better for me is because in Outlast 1 you can hide. Yes, you can hide in Outlast 2, but let me explain first. In Outlast 1 you can hide in designated safe spots where you are safe.
Like
If
the
you do it right, you're safe. If you hide in the locker and nobody sees you, you're
yeah,
safe, et cetera, et cetera. Like there are places where and situations where you are 100% safe. In Outlast 2, there is not a single part of that game where you are 100% safe. Most of the
mm,
hiding spots in that game, you can be found still and killed. There's no
like they
guarantee of
like they will
getting
search
away.
like.
Yeah,
I lost sight of the person I was chasing. Let me check in these obvious human-shaped hiding spots.
yeah. Like Big Scythe Lady, she can just find you no matter where you are. And she's always looking for you. So the feeling of like I have to always keep moving, and not only do I have to keep moving, I have to keep moving the right way because if I make one wrong step, I'm going to die.
Yeah, you could
Like
run into something else or
it
hurt yourself
it's
or
it also has the best quote I think in horror games, Outlast 2, which is the priest saying, "We are in the." Joey, do you know how to bleep things?
he would need a
Just
timestamp.
just real quick. Do you know how to bleep things?
Yes. Do you want me to?
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to bleep a certain word in the like
We're about like 25 minutes in.
yeah. So it has my favorite quote, which um I'm going to say the word, but it's going to get bleeped out. So for those of you who really want to know, it begins with a C and it's four-letter words. Or four-letter word begins with a C and ends with a T. So I'm not going to say anything else, but the quote is the priest doing his preaching, and he says, "We are in the of Armageddon." And I just think that is the greatest horror line I have ever heard. I don't know why it's great. There's a few other good ones, like he calls somebody a whore's miscarriage, which is amazing. Like this guy is just ruthless. And like you can get away with certain things like that in horror games, but to hear somebody like chanting stuff like that while you're hiding underneath a floorboard as they're like killing somebody, and like that's the kind of shit they're chanting, it's just like unsettling. It makes your skin crawl. Like there's
that is
something
also
about
good part of horror games. I'd say, like, if there is other survivors, I should say, and they're just getting killed nearby you.
I think the scariest thing for me in horror games is evil children. Like in horror in general, I don't like evil children because of how vulnerable children can be, and how usually the thing taking over a child is an adult demon, and so it just builds this really uncomfortable tension of like when they're saying things and it's coming out of a child's voice, and it's just like stop, no. But I don't know many horror games that have like a that kind of thing. At least I couldn't think of any off the top of my head. But we can't talk about horror games. What?
I was gonna say, normally I think I associate that with movies. I'd probably say.
Yeah, exactly. I think we can't talk about horror without talking about Slenderman, because I think, obviously, Amnesia, I think, really pushed horror into where it is today. But I don't think horror would even be popular if, oh my god, I keep burping, if not for
Slenderman.
Slenderman, because it truly like inspired horror to be something that it never thought it could be. As far as games go, I want to preface that. And like it came out the first time Slenderman was thought of was 2009, and then Amnesia came out. Hold on, I know I'm a terrible podcast host. I should have had it. Amnesia came out in 2010, and you know, I think once Slenderman hit the popularity, people started being like, wow, there's a lot you can do with horror in games, and there's a big market to be made, and it's so untapped as far as video games go. And the most horror games at the time were like shooters, zombie crawlers, resi stuff,
or anything like associated with games would be more of like creepypastas and all that.
So once people saw how successful Slender was, they're like, wow, this has a market, and we could do a lot of shit with it. And there's no real limitations, because horror is allowed to be raunchy, risque. Horror is allowed to be dirty, evil, and you don't have to follow a lot of like restrictions that you would for like a platform or a certain.
It's automatically like most of the time put like in the higher ratings anyway, because it's horror. It's also going to be a little bit gory anyway. So subjects normally have to be there in order for it to work. But people eat it up of all ages anyway, so because it's just that popular. I'd say like Slenderman was also popular because it was done well at a time where like it could get the free publicity of YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
Of just
YouTube
like
really definitely
around.
YouTube really helped the horror game community. I don't know if it would be where it is without it. I don't think it would, because horror relies on like, at least in the earlier days, it relied on like word of mouth to spread things around, because a lot of it was indie developers. And with YouTube, more people could see these games, and more people could realize that they could do stuff like these. And it really,
and also be inspired by these games as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Or give them nightmares, whatever the case it would be for horror games.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's some like good there's some trying to remember the exact game. There's some like good examples of other elements in in horror games that like don't get used too often. Like
Yeah.
for Dead by Dawn, I think it was. I forget. It was this weird horror game where it had like the butterfly effect of like choose your own timeline thing. Hold on. Let me use the power of Google. And Dead by Dawn. That's that's the one I was thinking of, I think. Where it had this mechanic of like your controller, like it would actually sense if it was shaking, so you had to keep it still in game, or the character in game would react. So you yourself had to be like steady and whatnot if you wanted the if you wanted to do well in the game or survive. And
Right. Hold on, give me
there's
one
a
second.
lot of I was gonna say there's a lot of yeah.
Sorry, I'm back.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's also another one that I like being used a lot is you using a microphone in those games. So you have to keep your voice down sometimes, or like keep your breathing steady. Which I've seen in a couple of games
Yeah,
recently.
that's an interesting one. Like where they there. I don't know. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but like there are games that you physically have to restrict. Yeah, like you said, your breathing and whatnot, and your own like actual sounds because it'll pick up on it and give you away, and that's really like another level of just terrifying.
Immersive horror. Immersive horror, yeah.
Yeah.
Like to actually make the game scary of like, oh, you see something passing by you, but you're hiding, but you let out a sudden gasp as you see it, and then the thing goes back. Oh, something's under here.
Yeah, exactly.
That
I like
was
how. Oh, sorry. Go on.
no, go ahead.
I like that there's like different successful genres in horror games. Like there is the shooter zombie killing games. There is the psychological ones. There's the FNAF games. There's the there's so many different styles, and it's always adapting, and it's always like it's always evolving and becoming like it's coming just getting better and better. And there's always something for everyone, every kind of horror fan out there, which is insane. I mean, it's just it's such a impressive um, thing.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to like on the same vein of like sound before, like how you said sound design was important. I do want to talk about like how the visual components are also very important. Like not just like oh it's dark and scary and whatnot, and there's a little bit of gore. I mean like how you perceive the game. Like like in Slender Man, I'm using the word like a lot. In Slender Man, you have like the recording or which a lot of horror games use of like this is something you're viewing now as someone that's probably picked up this tape or something of so
Right.
this is probably already over, or you as a person in your peripheral, you're trying to record things so that way you can get like kind of static as you're recording, or like other visual things of like, oh, the camera is dropped, and you see what's happening to the person that dropped the camera,
Right.
or like, oh, I found this old VHS, and it gives that old like weird feel of the VHS, like when you're playing the game for some indie games that I've seen. I think it's a pretty cool method of like viewing things. It also like gives
Right.
like that claustrophobic feel a little bit of like this is all you can see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to talk.
Uh,
I don't
I
know
was
what
like,
else to
you cut
talk.
out there for. I was gonna say, did you want to talk about how you feel about some of the games? You had some other ones listed before, like Evil
Well,
Within.
I'm not a fan of Resident Evil. Silent Hill. I just know it's successful. I haven't played most of them. Soma was good because Soma like had a like futuristic, like post-apocalyptic kind of vibe to it, where and the ending was great because like my audio is killing itself. Hold on. Am I better?
Yeah.
All right. I liked Soma because it was also it. So, folks, if you're wondering why I'm so like jittery or like not saying a lot as much as you might think, I'm a very big Phillies fan, and the Phillies are being no hit through 9 innings almost. They're losing 5-0 in the World Series, and they are being no hit, which has only been done once in the World Series ever in baseball history, and they're coming off a 7-0 win, and they have not gotten a hit in this game, and they're about to lose. And so I'm very upset and distracted.
Mike is going through his own horror show currently.
I am. Being a Philly fan is a fucking horror show. Like, you can't ever be happy. You can't be excited for fucking anything. Whenever you think something's going to go well, you're gonna lose. You always have to keep your expectations in the fucking dirt, 6 feet under, or else you'll be 6 feet under.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry. But yeah, that's why I'm struggling sometimes, because I'm watching this monstrosity. But hold on, where was I? We're gonna take a bit of a break. I'm just gonna watch the 9th inning, and then I'll come back and we'll finish.
Okay.
Okay, we'll be taking a quick
I can't
pause.
focus.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm James still. After the break, Mike is not feeling the best, so gonna try and continue this. Gonna take some time to recharge and then get back in.
I'll be fine.
Are you
got
sure?
no hit in the World Series after winning 7-0 in Game 3, and they just lost 5-0 and got no hit for only the second time in playoff history. I'm fine. Let's go.
Okay. So while that was happening, me and Joey were talking about aspects of like bad horror games, in the sense of like, well, he brought up FNAF and how he doesn't like it. Joey, would you like to elaborate on that? Like, I have things I don't like about it, but can you describe what
I
you
would
don't
love.
like about FNAF?
I know I'm not Joey, but I could really go for some shitting right now on like some things right now. I could really go for just lashing out at certain things.
I mean, I can just explain one thing that I don't like in horror games.
What's
if
that?
you don't mind.
Go for it.
And see if you... So, I've been trying to get into Resident Evil recently because I saw one of my friends playing Resident Evil 6, I believe. And he was having a fun time, and I saw how it was like all action, so I decided to get into Resident Evil 1, like the remake. And so I was having fun. I was going through it. It was kind of scary, and the tension was rising. It was rising. And then I died from something that I couldn't prevent because a dog latched onto me and one hit killed me at full health. And I kind of just decided, no, this isn't scary. This isn't fun. Just quit.
Resident Evil. I was about to just say Resident Evil sucks. It doesn't suck. Most Resident Evil games suck to me, as far as being horror games. Most of them, specifically, 3, 5, or specifically like 1, 3, 5, 6, are just shooters to me. Maybe not 1. I don't remember much about 1. But 2, 4, and 7. Well, 2 and 7 are like good and scary, and 8's kind of scary too, actually. But really, the only those are the only ones that I think are good. Like 2, 4, 7, and 8 are good. 7 is the only one that actually I think is scary.
I remember playing the VR demo for 7 multiple times, and I'm like, holy shit, this is making me shit bricks.
Yeah.
Well, they're definitely changing like what kind of horror they were when they were going to 7. From going to that first person view probably helped it a lot, considering normally it's like a third person kind of view. I think it makes it a lot more scary when it feels like you're in the actual moment, I should say. And, like, I've only watched clips for it. I mean, 8 is more of, I don't know.
Lady damage.
It feels more that you can fight back in 8, I would say. And boy, do you fight back in 8. And also hand horror. Dear God, the hand horror.
Ethan?
Yeah.
No.
my
I do
fingers.
I do think that one of the worst, and now listen, you're gonna have to listen to this whole thing. I'm moving
Go
away
for it.
from Resi. In terms of horror, in terms of evolution, and in terms of making games that lead to better games, that lead to better games, that lead to better games, in terms of like making the genre better and that stuff, I think Five Nights at Freddy's is probably the worst horror franchise and has caused the worst problems in horror of repetition, laziness, bad jump scares, and cheap uh, shit. Now, let me clarify by saying Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and even 2 are phenomenal games. And the only ones that had a right to do that afterwards was 3 and 4, and the ones that were called Five Nights at Freddy's. I think they should have stopped at 2, but it was a very successful franchise, so obviously you make more. What the problem is that it spawned so many clones and fan games that are the exact same thing, just cheaper with worse jump scares and no lore, and that sets everything back. Because now you have people just trying to make cash grabs on FNAF clones instead of trying to make games that are
good
actually terrible.
horror.
Those games worked initially because they hadn't really been done like that before. You hadn't had that sort of thing before, where you're sitting and you're just going through cameras and animatronics are just moving like that. That whole way that games were done hadn't been done before, and then 2 evolved on that greatly.
It was good because you
And
weren't like
3
running
and
away. You were
yeah,
holding them off, which is
yeah,
not something else that you normally think about when you think
yes,
about horror. Of like you're holding something back.
yeah. And then 3 and 4 were pretty good, but once those came out, obviously you're going to get 1 or 2 fan games. That'd have been fine. But once there was like 40 fan games, and most of the fan games have now taken over FNAF and are flooding the genre, it like FNAF, you won't get scared twice. You'll get jump scared, yeah. You'll get jump scared every time because that's human nature. When you make it really quiet and then you had a very loud noise, it jumps you. That's not
Right.
scared. That's not being scared. A jump scare does not equal being scared. Sometimes it does, but in the case of this, it does not. In the first couple games, yeah, like you could probably have been scared,
To be,
but it,
I do want
a
to
lot
say
of
this.
these just do the same thing.
I do want to say I want to give FNAF its due when it is actually scary. This one scene that it does have in
There's
Security
a
Breach. I'm
few.
not sure if you played. Hmm?
I have.
I,
Security Breach is
I,
fine.
I'm saying like the one that I think that comes to mind is when they first introduced Vanny, and now there's a suspense of
But
she's coming to you,
yes,
and you have to figure out a way how to get out of this room
yes. Now
because you don't know how to.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Nope.
I was gonna say it
Now here's
creates such a
oh,
panic of like you don't know. Yeah, loss,
right.
not knowing everything, and something is coming to you will create that panic, and I think that was a good like moment for it of just like, okay, this is actually scary.
I agree. Now, here's why I also disagree. I am not talking about Security Breach because that's completely different from Five Nights at Freddy's in the sense that the style of that game is not anything like any of the other Five Nights at Freddy's games. That's its own thing.
Okay, fair enough.
Whereas what I'm referring to are the clones that have flooded and in every medium, like every character has one. Five Nights at fucking the Krusty Krabs, Five Nights at Flumpties, Five Nights at One Night at Humpty. Like there are so many. Some of them are good in whatever, but just because they're good doesn't mean they're not setting things back. They're preventing other games from coming out and being good. And these games are the same thing.
I do admit that a lot of, I'd say, new indie horror games in general, getting that jump scare aspect too. Like, oh, when the monster finally gets you, they give you a jump scare screen of some kind.
Yeah.
Because, it's just, something that a lot of people are influenced by now. I mean, I think that's fine, but a lot of them also don't add anything original along with it, which makes it difficult. I'd say, I'd say even like the Five Nights at Freddy games, at least add something new with each iteration, at least a new mechanic or how the layout is different.
I think the only ones that are allowed to be that medium anymore are the actual Five Nights at Freddy's games. Because
even
they did it.
They
so they have
changed it up. Even like Scott Coffin changed it up. Like by the time like Five Nights at Freddy 3 came out, it was like, oh, you're calling the one animatronic
different.
over there. Oh, these ones are fake, and there's only one real one. Oh, Five Nights 4, you have to go in and like check every area. You're just slightly moving to every area and like flicking the lights on and off and whatnot to get the nightmares away. Because I actually remember the games.
So let me just say, there's those nights at Rachel's. There's Five Nights at Candy's, Five Nights at Candy's 2, Jollibee's, One Night at Flumpty's, One Night at Flumpty's 2, and those are just the really popular ones. And
yeah,
like there's Five Nights at the Krusty Krab, Five Nights at there's just so many of these stupid things, and they flood everything, and everybody's got to play them.
Basically, just reskins of Five Nights at Freddy's, and not even like any of the newer ones. Just Five Nights at Freddy's 1. No other different mechanic of like, oh, you gotta put the mask on. Oh, you gotta move through this area.
Five Nights at Sonic, Five Nights at Junior's, Five Nights at Treasure Island, Five Nights at Five Nights at Luigi's.
Okay. There was like it's also I'd say not something we also didn't mention is that some games that are not horror games implement horror sometimes to actually like change up the pace of things. Like I would say for Scarecrow in Arkham Asylum, which is an easy one to point to because a lot of people play Arkham Asylum, where if like, oh, I'm actually going to like mess with your game a bit real quick here. I'm gonna shut it off for you real quick. I'm gonna mess with your file real quick. Like actually scare, like fourth wall break scared you as a player is also really really good. I can't think of like the names for a bunch of games before, like excuse me, where they do that. Like normally when they try to do that, they do characters that like are staring at you at the screen instead of the character that's in the game. But like that's kind of standard. It's been like that way for a while. How do you feel about the fourth wall breaking ones?
What? I don't mind the fourth wall break. I don't mind it if it's done right. It can be cool.
Yeah.
Does anybody remember? Did anybody know what Cry of Fear is?
Cry of Fear? I don't think I do.
It's an old one. It's back in like the Amnesia Dark Descent Penumbra era. I don't remember much about it, but I just wanted to give it a name drop. It was really good. I just can't remember much about it.
It's a free game?
12 years ago. I don't know. I don't remember.
Single player and co-op horror game set in a deserted town filled with horror creatures.
Yeah, I just remember it being really good, really scary, and yeah. So I just wanted to give it a shout out, even though I couldn't remember much about it.
It is free on Steam. It is free on Steam.
Cool.
Let me see. System requirements, Windows 7. Okay.
And then you have games that like, I like it when there isn't a monster. When it's just in your head, like that gets me. When they don't actually show anything. Yeah, and it's just all up in your head. That I like that ideas as well. That's always fun.
That's the thing too. Like a lot of horror games also get away with that mystery sort of factor of like, is this like what kind of thing is this? What the heck am I going up against?
Yeah,
and also just not knowing what the heck you're going up against, or sometimes it's just your freaking brain.
A lot of horror games do. I think a very good tell for if it's going to possibly be a good horror game is if you go into it and like the first 10 minutes go and A, you're already a little uneasy, and B, you have no idea what's going on. If that's like the case 10 minutes in, you're usually in a good spot for like a good horror game.
I did have a horror game that I did download, another indie one. I think I probably said this before that you guys have heard. Like it's I don't remember the name of it. It was just this really stupid game. I played the game like for a good hour. Nothing had really happened to me. I was just walking around this like it was like a long like when I was a freshman in college. That's how long ago it was.
Oh.
So literally before I met either of you, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna play this game, go walk around for a bit, and an hour into the game, the prompt suddenly appears in front of me of like, press this key to run, and I'm like, oh.
Whenever you see that, something's gonna happen.
I'm like, oh, okay. I think I'm gonna turn the game off now. You've already been fucking with me for an hour. I'm just gonna close.
Yeah. On the other side of the spectrum, there's like Spooky's House of Jump Scares was like really cool because it's so lighthearted and funny looking. You think it can't scare you,
basically
and then it just
kind
does.
of making fun of jump scares, and then it actually does.
And it was actually kind of good, yeah. So that's always fun.
Oh man.
God, bad horror games can be really funny.
Oh yeah, I'd say in the same vein of Dead by Daylight, we're up against incompetent killer. It's just like, okay, bud, I'm just gonna troll on you a little bit here. Just gonna infinitely bash you with a freaking lock.
There's a horror game called Bad Bed that the Gameroom recently played, and it has to be one of my favorite games. Not because it's good, not because it's well done, not because it's scary, because it's fucking hysterical. This game is like you had one guy made it essentially. It looks like, and he voiced it and everything, and it's as if you're watching a movie. Like the way he's talking, he's just like, "Who is in there? You better not be in there, you son of a bitch, you little bitch. I'm going to get you." And it's as if you're watching the screen and you're talking to the screen like, "Oh, who's over there? Who's there? I'm big, strong. I'm gonna beat you. I'm not afraid." And that's how he's talking, but it's so cringe because of his voice. And there's a swear button, and anytime a game has a swear button, it's great. Like, oh my god, he'll just have like quotes of just like being walking around. Also, the game's slow, and he'll just walk around, and you'll just hear, "God damn it, ass."
Swear.
You get back here, you little bitch. And I'm just like, dude. It's so great. There's a literal swear button. It's not scary at all. The game is hysterical. It's probably maybe an hour long. It is one of the funniest. I don't know if I've laughed that hard at a game that I shouldn't have laughed at. Like I just don't know, but it's amazing.
Yeah. Horror, when not done right, could just be, like as you said, extremely funny. Of just like, I'm literally clowning on this freaking. This is not scary at all, so I'm just gonna make fun of the entire game the entire time.
Yes.
Or like for some indie games when they try too hard, you know? It's just like, okay, this is just one of those. I see.
Oh my god, he made a movie.
Who made a movie? Wait, the person that made the
Bad
game.
Ben.
Okay.
Bad Ben Benign 2021 official trailer. He's making a movie.
Man, if it's the same quality as this game, can't wait.
That's amazing. All right, I'm gonna send you the link to this video.
Is there any other bad horror you can think of? I can think of like games that have the scary aspect, but aren't exactly like supposed to be scary. Like I'd say, like Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah, they
Oh,
just
well,
they
Luigi's
just have like
Mansion had a couple of moments where it was like kind of dark though.
yeah, but we're talking about games that have like a sort of spooky
Yeah.
environment. It's not actually a horror game, but it has horror aspects. Like the Batman
Yeah.
Arkham games where
Games.
you're not the one fighting against the spooky, you're the spooky.
You make everyone else scared of you,
Yes.
especially during the Predator areas.
Oh, I love those where you're just going down and doing inverted takedowns, doing takedowns behind them, making it all silent, getting them all scared. It's like, what the hell is going on?
Then you appear in front of them, and then they're too scared to freaking shoot. And then they realize when they finally work up the courage to try and shoot you that you've turned off their weapon already.
I was just about to mention that.
Oh man, inducing the horror is also funny.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. And then there's games like Dead Rising where, yeah, it's kind of a horror environment, but you're really there just for fun.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, this is a very non-serious moment, except like Dead Rising 2, where you kind of had to get to medicine, but a Dead Rising 1 where you don't take anything seriously. Of just like, I got the shot. Nice shot.
Nice cock.
Nice cock.
Pulls out gun, cocks a gun. Nice
cock.
Gets ready to paste to freaking set up a wall. Has to get out his adhesive. Nice cock.
Good shit.
God, that was a freaking reach, but I still liked what I made.
Yeah. And then there's games like Castlevania where the main aspect is the horror just environment. You're not really meant to be scared, you're just meant to be trekking.
Right.
Well, that's because you're a capable warrior that's used to fighting this exact stuff.
Yeah.
Of like going up against Dracula in his horde of the undead or whatever the frick you find at the Spirit of Halloween.
Yeah. And then there's games that I haven't played like BioShock 1 and 2 where I don't quite know.
I mean, some of the stuff is scary in BioShock, like the big daddies and like the aspect of like psychological bullshit that you sometimes go into, or like the overwhelming like threat. But overall, you could just like clown most of the rest of the game, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else we can talk about?
Maybe
I knew this was going to be a shorter one, but like
Binding of
Binding of
Isaac,
Isaac.
because it's kind of like horror-esque.
No, it's not.
I'd say it's a horror landscape that you have to go through.
Yeah.
And like the story itself is like fucked. But
yeah,
then
psychological.
It's like psychological horror.
No, but
that's fair.
I'm trying to think of like
just have a lot more gore than like actual horror, I should say, for Isaac.
That's true too.
Yeah, really.
And again,
I mean, I knew this was gonna be a shorter episode just because it's talking about horror games and
horror's more of a niche thing.
So much. Yeah, so
it's a niche, but also a general topic that we chose. I like a specific game to talk about it.
Yeah,
we just chose.
I think we're gonna wrap it up there. I would like to say that I'm very excited for the next episode because that's going to be Sonic Frontiers. It's going to be our review.
Indeed.
Comes out in a few days.
Less than a week.
Yeah.
Less than a week.
I am unbelievably excited. You can listen. I'm excited for this. See, I can be excited for this because I know this won't fail me. Even if it's bad, I'll still have fun with it. Like Philly sports, I'm not allowed to be excited until it's over. Not allowed. Not allowed to be happy. Can't be happy until they've already won. Once they've won, I can be happy. Can't be happy until then. Not allowed. So, I won't go on that rant. We sat here after they lost, by the way, everybody. We sat here after they lost, and I came back for about 25 minutes, and I just vented frustrations and ranted as they were in silence listening to me. And like by the end of it, I was almost in tears. That's how passionate I am about Philly sports, and it's upsetting. But anyway, horror games are great. Horror games have come so far. And I really love them. I mean, it's probably my favorite genre aside from RPGs of gaming,
But
just because of how
many
versatile it
aspects.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Many
but
aspects.
I think you should check them all out. The best ones that I would say to check out would probably be Outlast, Amnesia, um, Alien Isolation, SCP Containment Breach, Penumbra.
Slender's always a
And
classic, but I feel like everyone
Slender's a
has at least.
classic, yeah. PT is always good, but everybody's probably seen that by now. Um,
Mhm.
Soma is a really heart wrenching one, and Evil Within's pretty good too. Um, but yeah, with all that being said, thank you all for listening. And sorry for a bit of a shorter episode, but sometimes it's good to have a shorter episode. So
Yep.
as always, thank you all for watching. My name is Mike.
Evan James.
And I'm Joey.
We will see you in about a week and a half.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.
listening.
See you.